Well, hi everybody, welcome back to Apple Cottage. This is Sandy and I am Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming. It's a beautiful morning here in Wyoming, and it's a perfect time in July to add second crops. It's a great way to extend your season even farther. Things that I'm going to be planting today are some cabbages. I'm going to be putting carrots in the garden, and I'm going to put everything, I'm just going to build them in between plants and vegetables, flowers that are already established. And by planting them in July, they have plenty enough time to grow, and I can harvest them into September. And so it just gives me different times during the year that I can harvest those vegetables. And so we're at a raised bed, and we're going to plant some carrots. Now in this raised bed, we have my little citrus growing. And I planted them about a week ago. They had been growing from seed inside the hoop house. And this is a cold hardy citrus. And as you can see, some of them are having a little bit harder time, but for the most part, I think there's 2 of them that are having a hard time. The rest of them are growing away. But as you see, I have these little trenches in between. And so what I'm going to do is, this is an onion tool, I know, it's one of my favorite tools. I'm just turning it on the side, and I'm just going to just make a little bit deeper trough there. And then it's just a matter of opening my carrot package. I'm going to put some in my hand, and I'm just going to sprinkle those. And I always want to keep my carrots moist when they're first starting. It's hard on plants when they get going and then they have dry weather and the soil dries out. And so that's really difficult for them. And then I'm just pushing that, lightly covering. Now I am going to pat this softly, but I don't want to press it down hard. I just want the seeds to have good contact with the soil. And so I'm going to do it on 1, 2, 3, 4 more areas, and I'm just putting carrots. Now these are Dover half-longs. I just really like them. They come from Baker Seeds. I'll put a link for Baker Seeds in there. In fact, I'll put a link for this tool. Now it's called an onion hoe, but I have to tell you, I use it all the time for weeding, going around plants. If there's any soil that seems to be cracking, crusting, it just breaks up that soil so that the water will go down to the roots. Now I'm searching all my garden beds, my raised beds, to see if there's any areas that I might add some seeds, some vegetables in. And by these tomatoes, there's an area right in here that gets a lot of sun, and so I'm going to add some carrots into that also. Just like I did on that other raised bed, I'm just going to sprinkle some carrot seeds in here. I'll have to thin them later, which I hate thinning, but that's okay. And see how I'm just lightly covering those, and I'm going to pat that down. Now even though this got watered last night, I will water again because I want those seeds to have a good start. Now all my raised beds have screening over top of them, and that just filters the sun. It helps it from any hail damage that we might have, and so that will protect these carrots also. But as you can see, the tomatoes are growing well, and I planted these very late. In fact, when I planted them, they just had their first set of leaves on, and as you can see, if I can get that in focus, they're about to start to flower. So I'm very excited about it. Now I have a little area here in front of some garden tote boxes, and I won't need anything in there until fall time. So I'm going to plant some cabbages in front of it. I laid straw down last week so that it would hold the moisture when I watered it. And so that way I can just push it apart, grab my little onion tool and dig a little bit, and set that right in there. I'll firm it up and press the straw around it. I'm going to do it again. I push the straw out, take my onion hoe, dig a little bit, because the soil is really soft right there because it's had the straw on there. And then I close it up with the straw around it. And I'm just gonna put 4 of them in this area. It gets a lot of morning sun right here, but then the hoop house blocks it and it's shady for the rest of the day. And so it gets sun until about 1 o'clock. And so that's plenty enough sun for it. All 4 of them are planted. And I had these growing in one of my raised beds that I call my nursery bed. And so they're at various stages, and they will be perfect, and I'll be able to harvest them in September. Walk around your garden today. Walk around your garden today and see any little nook and cranny that you may add a plant or plant from seed. I ended up putting 11 cabbages back here. And I will hook up a system with the screening just so the grasshoppers don't get these, because they were under screening in the raised bed. Certain parts of my yard have had grasshoppers. And can you see those little tiny grasshoppers on there? So this is a sacrificial cabbage right here. Now, 2 feet away from that, I have cabbages in netting, and you can see the grasshoppers trying to get in, but they can't. So that's a great way to protect. You can use shade cloth, you can use screening, you can use a lot of things. And sometimes it's good just to have a plant that you just let them eat. Sometimes that's radishes, sometimes it's cabbage, and they'll just eat away, and then when they migrate, they'll be gone. Now these tomatoes were planted exactly the same day as those tomatoes in the raised bed, but these don't have any screening on them. And though they're growing well, especially for how small they were when I planted them, they're not as big as the ones under the shade, and I think because it filters the sun somewhat. But you can see this is my Mizuna. You put that in salads. And there is some flea beetles and some little tiny grasshoppers on there. But they haven't done too much damage to that. And they pretty much leave the castor beans alone. And they seem to leave the sunflowers alone. And so Aaron at 4 Kids in a Farm, some of my sunflowers in the challenge. Not as big as his. His are already 6 feet tall. But we'll catch up by the end of the season. How many just nooks and crannies can I find to grow some carrots? This was a pot that was by my walkway. So I'm just gonna sprinkle some carrot seeds in there, and I'm just gonna fluff it up a little bit, just so it mixes it in, and I'll pat it down. And I'll water that good today. But I'm just gonna walk around my yard and see where else I can add some carrots. Now here's just a flower pot that's along my retaining wall. It just hooks onto it. And there's a little space between the peppers and the flowers. So I'm just sprinkling it in there. We'll cover it up and we'll pat it down. Where else? How about around a tomato plant? I like doing radishes around tomato plants too. But any kind of seed, you could put lettuce seed, you could put carrots, you could put radishes. A lot of plants don't take that long to grow. So take advantage of that. Well, I planted the echinacea in this pot, this kettle thing, and one of them is doing fine since I planted it, but this one was really dying back, except for now it is starting some new leaves, so I think it's going to survive. And it's perennial, so it has all summer and, you know, like forever. But for right now, I am going to just plant some carrot seeds around it. So every nook and cranny you can find, plant this week. So here's some really new tomato plants that have been recently planted. My theory is that it all catches up with the warm weather and the warm soil. But you can see there's a lot of space, so I'm just gonna dig around and I'm gonna plant carrots all the way around. I just wanted to put a shot of my mullein in here. It's about 6 feet tall. The other ones aren't quite as tall as that first one. But I grow it for the leaves that I dry, and I use them. And usually it's packed with bees, but they were a little scared when I started getting so close and filming, so they skedaddled. So take a little stroll around your garden this morning or this coming week and just look and see all the different places that there's a little bit of bare soil. What could you plant in there? Either as a plant or a seed, something that will boost your harvest when it comes to September. As always, like, subscribe, share with the world. This is Sandy and I am Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming. I hope you had a great 4th of July, and I will see you soon.